Final Word Cricket Podcast, 3-day test for Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm, on the field of play here at Kensington Oval in Barbados. Australia have done the business. Jeff will tell you how. I'm Adam Collins. He's the other guy, and he'll tell you about it in 30 seconds. Smooth from me.
How did that end in 3 days? They were 82 ahead when they started. Ahead, and Webster put on 102. Carey made 65 in quick time. They got to a lead of 300. Australia made 310. It was too many for West Indies, we thought, but we didn't realise just by how much. They were 1 for 47 and going quite nicely, smacking a few boundaries, and then all out 141 dramatically an hour and 13 minutes after the scheduled close in the dark, which is why the lights are on now. Don't know how that happened inside 3 days. Remarkable.
Don't quite know how the last half an hour happened, if I'm perfectly honest with you.
The last half hour that became 45 minutes.
Start there?
Start there? Yeah, let's start there. Let's start at the end.
I'm okay with the 8 overs thing. I think that was like, I could kind of get that if you squinted it. Half an hour, 8 overs, fine, whatever.
Half an hour, yeah.
But
Well,
the
extra hour is always 15,
yeah,
so
cool.
the half's got to be 7 or 8.
I don't mind that. I didn't know that, but I'm okay with it.
I didn't know that either. I was surprised by that.
What I'm less okay with is there being a wicket in the 8th over, and them going, oh, we'll roll out another bloke. That was the last over of play.
Yeah.
When Jaden Sills walked out, I'm like, come on.
As far as I understand it, wicket in the last over means that you've got to stop. But I'm also glad that not everybody had to come back tomorrow for one wicket, because that would have been...
There are different ways of interpreting this, but yes, I think that
it felt like
they
a
didn't
bit
feel
of
like they wanted to come back
good
themselves.
quality county cricket umpiring, where it's like, let's just give this one towards the end of day 3 because they're already 8 down, and let's just wrap this up and get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was not what the umpires were thinking.
It was a homage to when we had Gunnar Gould on the circuit, who always wanted the extra half an hour, always wanted the early test match. It's starting to rain now, for what it's worth. I hope it doesn't rain so heavily as to us having to cease our podcast.
Narrator voice, it did start raining, and so we did go undercover. It's still raining a little bit. I don't know, maybe not enough. Maybe we went too soon, but that's the thing that the umpires didn't do. They didn't go too soon. I kind of enjoyed the common sense approach to that, although West Indies cricket really wanted the game to get into day 4, so it would be Saturday, so some people would come down, but people were not going to come down with 2 wickets to get or 1 wicket to get.
Yeah, I didn't know whether it was a good or a bad thing that it ended in 3 days at that point for Cricket West Indies, because yes, there would have been ticket refunds.
Yes.
I suppose.
With the costs of opening up the ground. But we got to talk about the cricket. Where do we go? Should we go back to the start?
Yeah. Oh, actually, I just want to say one last thing about the end.
Okay.
Like, just make them fucking work for it. Like by the end, I kind of mean the last 40 to 50 minutes of cricket.
Yep.
Maybe the last hour and 20 minutes. I'm not really sure where it all unravelled for them, but I do know when it was. It was Hazlewood's second spell at 1 for 47.
But you're not going to win the game.
But you've got to show a willingness to make the game go another day, not because of any sort of ambition of winning the thing or drawing the thing. It's because you've got to make 3 older fast bowlers, not as old in Pat Cummins' case, but still, you know, a veteran of the game. You've got to make them warm up one more time. You've got to make them bowl that extra spell. You've got to make sure they don't get a full extra day off. This is the stuff we hear about, marginal gains. And they missed the chance for something small that could have played a role in what happens next week and the week after. And they ceded that in favour of trying to hit dingers. And sure, Shamar Joseph launching 4 of them. He was on the cusp of the fastest half century in West Indian Test cricket. Fine, good as gold. But what would have also been good is them being 8 down at stumps, making Australia come back tomorrow, holding on for another hour, and make Stark and Hazlewood have to go through the whole rigmarole again. And who knows? Maybe there's an injury out of that.
It's a 3-test series as well. You've got 2 contests to go, and even if you're not talking about the physical burden, it's just the psychological thing of not being able to do what Australia will be doing tonight, which would be slapping each other on the back, going back to the hotel, having a great old time, enjoying the beach tomorrow, having a full extra 2 days off. This is a tight series. They're 3-day turnarounds between the games, or is it 4 days? There's not a lot of time. They've got to move to Grenada. They've got to do the next test. So gobble up part of the next day. Make sure that it's not easy for them. That would have been that would have been the Test cricket sort of mindset. But West Indies had given up by that point, and Shamar Joseph had given up by that point. He took 5 wickets earlier in the day, and you could understand looking at your team and going, well, if you dickheads can't do it, if you can't support the effort that the bowlers have put in, then why should the bowlers come out and try to bat for the draw? You can see why that mentality would happen. It was Hazlewood who set this up. I don't know if we go back to the start of the batting, but I feel like Hazlewood's spell for me was, I mean, obviously it's the most statistically significant, but he felt the one most likely. So Australia, they get to 310, they're 300 in front. It is almost certainly going to be too much. But I remember saying to you just before that inning, it's like Hazlewood with that pitch, with the variable bounce that was coming in a bit, with the way it keeps low and with his accuracy, I said he's the one. He's just going to put it in that same spot, and some of them will keep a bit low. and he got them to seam in as well, so he got the ball jagging in quite a bit. He gets 2 catches inside edge onto the pad, the one that loops to slip and the one that off chase that goes to short leg. He gets the ball that comes back in to Kesey Cardi. The Cardi party was over at that point, and that was after he got led in with the one with the Campbell attempted sweep sort of lap shot that he played that bobbled up behind the wicket. It was Carey who caught that, wasn't it? So 4 for 4 in that burst.
Incredible.
And 4 for 23 all up, which he makes 5 for 23 when he comes back for his next spell.
Yeah, I was in the stands with some of our final word listeners with my camera out for the majority of that Hazlewood stint. In fact, I got back in time to call the Cardi dismissal. And remember when he made his test debut years ago now, back in 2014, there were all of these very generous comparisons to Glenn McGrath with the way that he approached the crease, tall, metronomic, and so on. Metronomic, I should say, and so on. The ball he bowled to Carty to knock him over was like a replica of the ball that McGrath bowled to Flintoff at Lord's 20 years ago. You know, it didn't get up maybe as much as he thought it was going to get up, but the way it jagged through the gate violently and took the stump with that beautiful sound through the stump mic. And it was the cherry on top of a magnificent spell. He came back and got a 5th later when he picked up Warracan when we were inside that final half an hour, I think, by that stage. But yeah, the way Hazlewood bowled, remember only a couple of weeks ago when we were in London and there was a lot of, why was he playing in the first place? It should have been Bowen and so on. And I understand the parochial interest in wanting Bowen to play. I understand the procedural fairness argument about him being the incumbent in Sydney and taking a 10-wicket match. But never forget how good a bowler Josh Hazlewood is in all of that. Never get sucked into thinking that somehow he is a lesser competitor now than what he has been at any other stage of his career. All the stats, all the spells, all the naked eye suggest he's now better than he's ever been. So that's why he gets picked when he's fit. Because these guys know a fair bit about cricket and they know he is capable of days like today. Remember, picked up 2 wickets across 18 overs and bowled beautifully in the first innings as well. So I know he wasn't man of the match. That was Travis Head for his 260 odds, but Hazlewood today was just immense. Yeah,
59-61 for Head. So 120 across the match when most players struggled with the bat is why he got the nod, but it could well have been Hazlewood for the 7 wickets that he took. If you look at his numbers, I've mentioned before, took his wickets last calendar year at 13. 35 wickets at 13.
Yeah, in one stretch, 7 test matches in one summer, he played every test.
He's taking his wickets this year at 18 in the couple of tests he's played. His wickets against the West Indies overall, he takes them at 15. And his wickets in the Caribbean, he takes at 9.
Useful. Beautiful numbers. Yeah.
Second to that was 19 wickets at 9, I think it is. So, you know, smallish sample size in matches, but he's taken plenty. Did it again today, and then, you know, so at this point, he takes his 4 for 4. Stark's already got Craig Brathwaite out, flicking one to square leg where Constance takes
Wasn't that a clever
catch.
Bit of setup as well? They had him, so they had Constance around the corner in a kind of a weird spot. It felt like
unusual.
It felt like he wasn't there to save the one necessarily, nor would he be, and he wasn't really there to catch in the leg gully region. But I guess with the extra pace with the new ball that Stark was generating, they thought it would carry there, and it just got to Constance, who was diving forward and made that contribution. Constance would go on to drop a catch, which is probably Hall of Fame worthy, which will come up later. And he took another one at short leg as well, which was pretty straightforward, which ballooned up in the air. But that catch in the first over of the chase off Brathwaite was you love that as a captain when something like that comes off and he's got a gut feel that where you're plonking someone and it goes to that fielder. That's what you dream of.
Mitchell Stark gets those ones flicked. Remember Dimmoth Karunaratne first ball in 2016 flicking one.
That's right.
A little straighter, more in front of square. But so they're 5 down at that point. Cummins gets another one to stay really low and crawl through. It hits the stumps of Shai Hope,
who looks absolutely dreadful today. I think
Funny.
we're all in on the Shai Hope thing. Like him being a relevant Test cricketer is good for the game. I probably said it on the pod yesterday, or probably yesterday. It must have been yesterday. But he was nowhere. That criticism that he doesn't want the ball in the line of his body, him defending with both feet off the air routinely, you can be fairly sure that every single time he walks out to bat for the rest of the series, he's going to have company with a leg slip and a man around the corner at leg gully and 2 men back for the short ball. It's going to be an absolute nightmare for him now, and that's because today he didn't look capable of dealing with it. And I'm not saying that's a bravery thing. How could it be a bravery thing? Anyone that laces up and plays at this level's brave, but it's a technique thing. Against the short ball, and that was against Cummins, against Hazlewood. It was the same problems to both of them. So that's going to be a massive problem for him.
So they're pretty much gone then. They're 6 for 65, and then things just slide away. Justin Graves calls Alzarri Joseph through for a run. Alzarri bombed a couple in the first innings. He's slow on the run. Labuschagne sub-fielding, pings the stumps direct.
How good was that from Marnus, right? All you can ask from a guy who's been dropped.
Yep.
I saw him yesterday. I saw him with it would have been I don't know whose pads they were. He was re-strapping pads for someone who had their pads drying up in the vest. He was preparing drinks, as you should as a 12th man. And then today, coming on as sub-fielder and doing as he did 4 times in 2022, nailing direct hit run-outs and the passion there. Marnus will be back. This is a necessary time out of the 11, but don't doubt his long-term ability to have a presence. And I love the way he's gone about his jobs this week. You can only really see that when you're up close, as we are each night. He fully committed to being 12th man, and that's commendable. He didn't sulk. He knows he's got a job to do.
Yeah. And you can do something. You can still influence the match. You can take a good catch. You can affect a run out, which is what he did. And then it's the Warricane, the man the authorities came to blame, with Hazlewood, who gets him. He's given not out. They review it. It's umpire's call for height, and the very next ball, Hazlewood nicks him off, and it's 5 for.
What's John Campbell doing? I mean, that shot he played to get out, having played it, was it Hazlewood's 5th ball of the innings? The lapping,
it's
kind of like the
scoop.
shovel. It's like a shovel over his shoulder.
It's not a scoop. He goes down on one knee
like
and flicks it
sweep.
square through a deep backward square. It's a sweep.
It's
just
basically
a
lap
shot.
sweep where he gets down low like a scoop, premeditated style.
Nailed the first one. Got it, fair fucks to him. Nailed the first one.
He's returning to the test team and playing like that. I know we talked about Constance in a similar vein last night. What he did was he exposed... They're 47 for 1, they're going okay.
Yep.
Right? He'd settled after that early frenetic bit. And then he lets Hazlewood in because he's the set man. You've got a responsibility when you're faced at that point. 30 deliveries you would have faced at that point. You've got a responsibility to the guys that come next not to get out that way.
Especially getting later into the day.
All of that, all of these things. And then he exposes poor old Brandon King and gets an absolute snorter first ball. Cameron Green had put a catch down in the gully, rare as it comes. Earlier in the inning, sorry, my voice is completely shot, went back and took a running back with the flight centre-half back stuff. Got up high as well and dragged that down. So suddenly 2 in 2 balls. Felt like the hat-trick might be on. I had that feeling today for once. Of course it wasn't.
It wasn't.
But, that was, again, an emblem of, immature batting. Thinking that was the right time to keep playing that way when they just got themselves kind of half sorta into the chase.
Yeah, so they're 8 down by the time Warricane gets out, and then there's the last bit that we talked about with Shamar Joseph whacking some runs and then getting out in what was going to be the last over of the day. Jaden Seals follows it up with a bat pad catch first ball, so Lyon gets a couple with 2 balls to spare in this ridiculously extended day. Back to the start, Travis Head and Bo Webster just did such a necessary job.
Brilliant.
Australia just needed 2 of their top 6 to do something to provide some consistency. Head 61, Webster 63. They put on 102 together. They were there overnight. They'd done a smaller job the previous evening and then got almost all the way to lunch. And what was really interesting was just how much they scored square of the wicket on the offside. They were both punching through point, through backward point, cover point so much, and then driving through the covers now and then when they got the ball up there. So they used the fact that it was a fast bowler's pitch. They used the fact that West Indies were bowling a good length and scored off that good length when they were able to punch away square off the back foot, and both of them were doing it left-hander, right-hander, different heights, going both sides of the wicket, and you could just sense the frustration from West Indies bowlers that they weren't bowling that badly, but they couldn't keep those guys quiet.
Once they got into the groove, they were brilliant, and they got there pretty quickly, but not without the drop catch. It was always going to be a Windies drop catch, wasn't there, on the theme of the last 3 days, and Graves putting Head down when the score was 108. I think Head was 19 from memory. That's 15 minutes into play. They get Head there, and, it would have been borderline impossible to have constructed a win, what they've enjoyed here, losing Head at that moment. They would have been under the pump again. They would have been not behind in the game, of course, because they had a lead last night of 82, but the lead would have been, I don't know, what would that, 98, would have been 98 had he been dismissed then, and it would have felt different entirely. Instead, they put on 102. So one of those drop catches was going to stuff them. It was going to break them. Every other drop catch they made amends for, kind of, sort of. They still bowled out Australia for 180 on the first day, so it didn't really, truly cost them. It frustrated them.
The Travis Head ones, because again in the first innings they drop him early and he's the one who goes on to make runs.
Right, but they still get Australia out for 180. Today, that was the ultimate off-the-hook moment. And, Graves dropped a couple, more than a couple, at least 3 that I can remember, of the 7 in the sequence, and that has ultimately cost them big time, because that's what's given Head the chance to bat for a 102-run stand either side of lunch. Well, just before lunch, he was out to a Shamar Joseph, changed ends bowled from our end here beneath the Malcolm Marshall end sign, and in his first over back, he blew Head's pad off with one that kept low, which was a sign of what was to come in some respects.
Well, that was the thing, and at that point you're thinking, well, for West Indies, even with Australia's lead at that point of 200 and a bit, like seeing that misbehaviour from the pitch told you that it was going to be very difficult for West Indies to bat. Not helped when Carey comes out, and so as soon as Webster gets out, Joseph bowls a 7-over spell either side of lunch, gets Webster caught down the leg side, and Carey the very next over goes 4-6.4, I think it was. Just went after it. He drove a couple of sixes down the ground. He was 50 off 40 balls at one point, gets to 65, does it quickly while the tail make a few. You know, Cummins makes a few, makes 9, I think Stark makes 13 or so, Lyons 13 not out, Hazlewood hits a couple of boundaries, so they all contributed, they all chipped into getting it up to 300 rather than 250, 260, something like that. Yeah,
remind me to come back to some Webster numbers in the Hall of Fame, Jeff. Okay. I just wanted to come back and say that how has Shorty looked this week? I interviewed him after play for radio, and he's like, yeah, well, I got beaten on the inside edge at Lords and the outside edge here in the first innings. Go back 5 years, and I'm tinkering, I'm changing my guard, I'm in my head. He said I'd have head noise everywhere, I'd be nowhere. He goes, now, 31, I played a lot of cricket, I kind of know how to trust my game. Comes back to a point we were making yesterday about sometimes experience can be the greatest commodity. I know that youth can be an elixir, cliched, as well, but you know, like, let's not discount what improving your game at domestic level, sorry about my voice, can mean for a player like Webster, stepping into Test cricket at 31, getting an opportunity and having that experience to draw down on. He got an absolute beauty the other day, and he got a very good one at Lords as well. But having gone through that in the space of 2 weeks, and then walking out and looking as assured as he did yesterday and today, and indeed on the first morning here when times were tough as well before getting that screamer from Shamar Joseph, there's a reason why they love this guy. And a couple of wickets thrown in there yesterday. This is a cricketer who has been picked at the absolute perfect time and played a massive role. That 63 took them up to 208. When he walked in the previous day, they were on 65. So, you know, that speaks for itself. Yeah,
and the lead's 200 at that point, which means that there's a good chance it's going to be enough. In the end, it was more than enough. Australia wrap up the win comfortably.
Yeah, and just Carey as well. Carey, bad shot first innings, but that 48 at Lords last week was in tough conditions, and he really did show his temperament there. Here, he was able to show another side of himself and counter-attack. Not even counter-attack. By that stage, it was punching the bruise. They looked knackered. He made the absolute most of that. He got to his 50 and 40 balls. He struck the ball beautifully, and it's a reminder of just how well Alex Carey rounds out the Australian top 7 after that 150 at Gaul earlier last year in those types of conditions, those runs in a low-scoring game at Lords last week. I know we remember the first innings more than the second, but you know, in context, when he walked in, they were stuffed. And, of course, what he's done here to make sure that lead got to 300. So well played, Alex Carey, who finished with 65, and he was the second last wicket to fall.
Before the Hall of Fame, Maurice Blackburn, the #1 plaintiff law firm in Australia. They've been backing the show, and they will be throughout the Australian Test matches, throughout this series, and on as we go through the year. Yeah,
was corresponding with Maurice Blackburn today, as it turns out. And, just great that we've got them here helping us do what we do. I feel really grateful for our group of partners and sponsors, because they help us get to where we need to be. We tell the story of Maurice Blackburn most days of our life, and we're proud to do so when it comes to superannuation insurance in particular, people who are in a vulnerable spot, not able to work due to injury or illness. It's Maurice Blackburn who are on your side, who are making sure they get your claims paid out and every dollar you're entitled to. And the majority of that work, the vast majority of it, is on that no-win, no-fee basis. So Maurice Blackburn, all their details in the show notes. Click through and you have access to some of the best lawyers in the land. Back in a moment with the Hall of Fame.
It is the Final Word Daily, the West Indies Australia Daily from Bridgetown, Barbados, day 3, day final, the last of them. Hall of Fame, things that tickled your fancy today. What have you got?
I'm going to go with Webster to start.
Okay.
He's played 5 Test matches in 4 countries. It's only happened from one cricketer before, a chap by the name of Phil Horn. I meant to check his details before the podcast, but I can tell you his name was Phil Horn.
With
How's
an E?
that?
Horn with an E? Or
you know what? Maybe it's like Matthew Horn with an E. That's what I'm going to go with. He was a Kiwi.
Ben Horn.
So Phil Horn played his first 5 Test matches in 4 countries. Bo Webster, the second player ever.
Okay.
Tommy Decent, bless him, great man, living with him at the moment over here, working for the Herald, of course. He sent me a text saying when Webster gets to 63, his batting average will be exactly 50, and his bowling average will be exactly 25. What did Webster do when he got to 63? He got out. So we don't get to have that beautiful symmetry. I told that to Webster before as well, that for a moment his average was 50, but it kind of reinforces how he's going, that if your batting average is twice your bowling average and one's got a 5 in front of it and one's got a 2 in front of it, you've got a very good start to your test career. Indeed. You're getting a pavilion named after you one day. Maybe not, but...
The bowling numbers aren't quite... Sobers is low 30s, isn't he? Isn't he 32?
Sobers, remember that Sobers often bowled the first over of an innings, and he took wickets bowling finger spin and wrist spin. Maybe that's the next thing for Bo.
Oh.
Wrist spin.
Garfield,
can he do the wristies?
There you go.
There you go. This is the challenge for you, Bo.
Caps on.
Challenge for you. Start bowling some tall man leggies, and you are the complete Sobers package. Let's back him in.
I like it. Hall of Fame for me is the fact that a bunch of final word people showed up wearing the Wally Hammond t-shirts today. It's 100 years since Wally Hammond landed in the Caribbean. So the first game of that tour was New Year's Day 1926, which means he arrived here. He arrived in this part of the world. Actually, the first game was in Barbados, so he would have arrived here in 1925. 100 years on, we can celebrate the century anniversary of when Wally Hammond came to this part of the world and caught the clap. Yeah, he came, and then he caught the clap. He loved to fuck, as was borne out in a number of disastrous relationships through his life. How that as is commemorated on this t-shirt. League Tees. Go to leaguetees.com.au.
Yes, memories to last a lifetime. Inquire about Wally's travel insurance. Full coverage means extra protection.
Full coverage. Bear that in mind. File that away.
It's
that is
probably
important.
Our best t-shirt. Get one from League Tees, and love having that. And get some sunglasses too. Link in the show notes. I've been wearing them bloody everywhere. Hall of Fame for Sam, bless him. That really good catch around the corner.
Yeah.
And then over there in front of the party stand when it's 8 down and Shamar's twatting them.
Yes.
Is it the third?
And when it was about 10 minutes until the likely close
That's
of play.
That's right. We thought it was the penultimate over. Ended up being like the fourth last over.
And the people who don't want to come back for day 4 are riding this. They're barracking for the wicket so that it can wrap up. Joseph whacks it out there. Consta settles. He's got the setting sun right in his eyes. Horrible catch to try to take.
Yeah.
And he gets hands to it and puts it down, unsurprisingly, but the groans that went up from some who were invested.
I walked past him about 20 minutes before that, and I could see him tinkering with his glasses and looking up to the sun and mocking the catch that might come. Had a couple of T20... Had some T20 visions on. Had he had the flares on, he would have snaffled it.
Yeah.
Best cricket sunnies in the bloody world. 10% off in the show notes. But he I can't categorically say he would have caught it, but all I'm saying is they're great sunnies.
Would have increased his chances,
That's what I believe. But
he would have at least looked good dropping it.
But for a time there, everyone's looking at each other like Sam Constance has just cost these boys a Friday night on the Tonk at Oystons, and he is going to be public enemy number 1 back at the hotel tonight. But no, he recovered the situation, took a catch at short leg to get rid of Jaden Seals, which proved to be the final dismissal. All's well that ends well for S. Constance, at least as far as the fielding is concerned.
I'm going to nominate the mini scoreboard that you can't see. It's not on anymore, but it's the little narrow one in between the two tiers of the stand over there. So it's long and it's skinny. It's like if Bo Webster laid down, it goes a long way along, and they can't fit anything beyond 6 characters of a name. Right? So they can do the first 6.
Your heads and your greens are fine.
Heads and greens, no problem at all. We had a Consta, we had a Kawaj, we had a Hazlewood, we had a Cummin. What did we have? We had 1 or 2 others. A Webster. But then they put the first initial. So you had B Webster, and you had U Kawaj, and so on. And then today, because Tom Deason and I have been tracking this throughout the Test match as to who was where and who was what. I went, hang on a minute. Graves, Greaves, 7 was on there because they'd taken his first initial out. They were like, what if we just bump the J? And so you had Graves, and then you had Jay Hazlewood was bowling to Graves, just Graves, like Madonna, like Prince, like I was going to say Boutros Ghali, but that's the opposite. He had more names. A one-name operator like Cher, Graves. He's just Graves now, the grave digger.
Well, that's what he's going to have to be.
Look, why didn't you do that for anyone else?
Let's get his cricket info page changed.
Why didn't you do that for... Kawaj has only got 1 more letter. Constance only has 1 more letter. Bump the first initial. We don't need to know which Kawaja. We need to know which Joseph. We don't need to know which Constance. So there are repetitive names and there are not. So, next time when we come back in 10 years for a test in Barbados, let's get that right with the scoreboard. I did like that scoreboard, though. That got me out of trouble on more than one occasion when the TV dirty feed went to something else. I'm like, looked up there. It was always on. It always had the score on. I rate a scoreboard that always has the score on it. Yes. I know that sounds like a small thing. It's surprising how few have it anymore. How many grounds have the
have the boards covered up with other stuff, e.g. Lords last week with the big
Yep.
one. Anyway, Jeff, that's us done. Thank you for watching and listening this week. We will be making a program tomorrow once we've heard out of the Aussie camp and the West Indies camp what's going on. That'll be our wash-up show. We'll have a lot more coming, both from England with the England-India series that'll play out, second test starting in a few days, and then we'll go to Grenada, and then we will see what it's like there. Neither of us have been there before, so that's the next step on our adventure. Thank you for helping make that possible, our patrons. We love you dearly. Patreon.com/The Final Word. So many people came up to me this week and said they were patrons on the show. That's just a beautiful thing to know that, you know, people like that who come on these tours and want to say good day and want to back us in and keep helping us do what we do. So join the fun, join our crew. Patreon.com/The Final Word. Thanks to Maurice Blackburn. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This has been The Final Word Daily. We'll see you tomorrow.
Don't be like Wally Hammond. Full coverage.